Hey guys, welcome back, or thanks for joining if you're new. I'm just getting on here today while I do my makeup and kind of sharing my birth story. So if you've been following along recently, you know that we were expecting a son, and I was given an induction date. So the 22nd was when I was scheduled to be induced at 7 a.m. that morning, which was really exciting because I did end up having to be induced with our other two kids, but it was like after my due date. And with this induction, I was actually 38 weeks, 5 days. So it was about 9 days early. And obviously, everybody in the last couple weeks of pregnancy is pretty rough. So being that my labor with my past two babies had been really quick, and my hospital, is 45 minutes away from where I live. And I'm on blood thinners because I have a protein S blood clotting deficiency. It makes me in a high risk category. And therefore the doctor just thought, let's not chance it. They told me with our last son that if I was to go into labor on my own, there is no way I would make it to the hospital because he literally fell out. Like I didn't even push. So anyway, all of that said, we scheduled the induction. It was supposed to be at 7 a.m. on the 22nd. So my in-laws came over the night before and they were going to stay with the kids. And we also had like an epic snowstorm, Arctic storm coming. So we had been watching the weather and it looked like it was going to be kind of a problem because it was supposed to possibly be getting really started about the time we would be leaving our house in order to get there in time. So we just decided, you know what, we're just going to get up super early and head down there because we really did not want to chance it with, bad weather and getting an accident or pushing off the induction date either. Silly, but I also just thought like 12/22/22 would be a really fun birth date. Anyway, so we get up, we're leaving, but the induction in directions tell you that you're supposed to check with the hospital before you actually leave your house, just to make sure that they haven't had like a lot of moms go into labor and whatnot. So I called and they were like, yeah, we're gonna have to push out your induction because we have too many rooms full or whatever. And I was like, oh no, are you serious? That's like the worst feeling when you think, that it's going to happen and then they kind of tell you like it won't. But basically I was telling her, I was like, we don't live close. So like, what should we do here? And she said, well, you can go ahead and come on down. And there was like a hotel by the hospital that we could stay at and wait, or there is a waiting room that you could sit into. Anyway, we opted to just go ahead and head down. And I was so relieved because by about the time we got to that town, they had already called me and said, we're back on schedule. Like, go ahead and come in. We'll still plan for your 7 a.m. induction. And I literally cried because I was so excited. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, once you get everything in place, you've got a babysitter watching the kids and you're packed and you're ready. And of course I didn't sleep the night before because you're so like just nervous, excited about the next day and stuff. And so anyway, I was really relieved to get that phone call. So we headed over to the hospital and they, started checking me in around 7 and then got me into the room. And of course, all that stuff just takes a while. They have so much paperwork and things they have to go over with you. But we had our first round of nurses that we met, and they talked about, hooking me up to Pitocin pretty quickly. And so about 9 a.m. is when that started moving. We got the Pitocin going. I did tell them I wanted an epidural. So we were just kind of waiting for things to happen. My doctor was like, she was still seeing patients that day, but of course, again, with the snowstorm, lots of cancellations were happening. So her goal was to be over to see me about the lunch hour and break my water at that time. But she got held up a little bit, so it ended up just being a doctor that was already the hospitalist, I guess. She came in, broke my water. That was like at noon. And So I had already had my epidural by that point, which was another interesting thing with our last 2 pregnancies or labors. I had to have 2 epidurals because one worked on one side of my body but wouldn't work on the other. And so like the first time I thought maybe that was just like a random coincidence or something. But then with our second pregnancy, that anesthesiologist was like, oh yeah, no, I'm really good. Like it'll just take one. And I was like, oh, okay, well, good. And then he, did the epidural, and within like 15-20 minutes, I was like, yeah, I can still totally feel everything on one side. So he ended up having to give me a second also. So this anesthesiologist, again, told him the same thing. He told me the same thing. Oh yeah, I mean, it's very rare that somebody would need more than one. I'm like, hey, we'll try. So anyway, but he did it. He gave me the first epidural, and I could very mildly feel things on my left side, but it was nothing like what it had been with the other 2 births. So I was like, yeah, no, I can totally live with this. So anyway, labor then was progressing, and so my water was broken about noon, and I just was not making much progress in the dilating category. They would like wait an hour or 2, come in and check me, and nothing was changing. It was really frustrating because again, with my other 2, like it just happened so quickly, but I think the difference was just the timing of it being earlier. My body just wasn't ready. I think I've kind of come to understand that when my body decides it's ready like right then, but you can't push it. So anyway, then I had progressed to like, they kept saying like a 4 or a 5, like 4 or 5. And that was maybe by late afternoon. And I just couldn't believe it because I kept thinking like, this baby will be born by noon. Like with the way my other labors worked, like they will give me Pitocin and I will have him within 2 hours, 3 hours max, and here we were several hours later and I'm like not even kind of halfway there. So I was getting a little discouraged, but anyway, the whole staff was really, really great. I will say it also started to get kind of concerning. Just, I don't know. They said that like my stomach was kind of too small for the, I don't even know what those things are, but the things that read your contractions. We're having a hard time reading my contractions. So it was kind of a question for a little bit, like, was the Pitocin working well enough? Were my contractions really happening because it wasn't reading accurately? So they ended up deciding that they needed to put it in, I believe it was an IUPC, which I had not had that before, but it was like a tube that went in all the way up into the uterus, like slides past the baby, and then can read the contractions internally. So it's a lot more accurate. And I was like, okay. That took like three attempts to install correctly, which made me very nervous because with the first 2, when they pulled it out, it like the tube was like full of blood. And I'll say also, like, even just like the very beginning, when they first put my IV in, that took like 3 attempts. And I've never been somebody that it took, well, I mean, like it's always been my veins are easy to find and they just find them and no problem. So I guess just with anything medically, whenever it starts taking more than like 1 try, you're just kind of like, I hope everything's going okay. Anyway, the doctor, because the nurse had tried to install it, and the doctor ended up coming in, my doctor, and put it in, and she had no problem, and it went well. And then they were able to see, like, no, my contractions were happening perfectly. That was no problem. So I think around 7 p.m. was when the shift change was happening, which I was bummed because the nurse that we had been having, Deidre, I think was her name, and we really liked her. She was really sweet. And so I didn't want to see her leave. We wanted her to be with us through the delivery, but the next nurse was coming on board or whatever, and she was really nice also. So that was a relief. And like I said, so 7 o'clock, I'm still like the same, right? And she's like, I think maybe we're going to try dialing back your Pitocin and leave it kind of like really low for an hour and a half and give your body a chance to like kind of rest. And then we'll start turning it back up and see if that helps. And so she did. And I think that did kind of make things start moving a little bit. He was lowering a lot, and even though my dilation really hadn't changed a whole lot, it still felt like we were progressing. That was another thing they kept telling me, people that were checking me. I feel like I was checked like so many times. They would say that there was like it felt like there was a leap, was the term, on my cervix, which I still don't quite understand really what that means, but essentially she was saying that it's like a band of tightness from like a previous, like if you've had like a cervical surgery or something like that, which I have not had, and they could see that from my chart and everything. But that band was keeping it so tight that was kind of part of like why things weren't dilating or progressing the way that we would expect them to, I guess. So anyway, that band was loosening finally, and so things were moving a little bit in a good direction. But at this same time now, my water has been broken for like 7 hours, which is fine. You can go quite a while after that, but it does to kind of start the clock of how long you can be in labor once that water is broken. So we were kind of keeping that in mind. And then our little baby, his heart rate was kind of a constant problem after labor was kind of getting going. They kept coming in and telling me, hey, baby doesn't like this position. We're going to have to flip. So I would flip from right side to laying on my back, then to the left side, then back to the middle or to the other side, and constantly trying to keep his heart rate like in a good rate, I guess. And it was just kind of nerve-wracking. Again, that's not really something that was, in our past labors and stuff. So anytime they kind of rush in and they're wanting you to move and they're checking the monitors and, it's just kind of nerve-wracking. You're just wanting to make sure everything's okay. And, so it was just kind of adding to the stress level, I guess, of everything. It was like, oh goodness, I hope he's okay. I hope everything's fine. So anyway, fast forward, now it's like 10 o'clock and the nurse is starting to talk about, she'll be going home within the next, I think, hour and a half or so, something like that. And I was like, oh no, because we had really bonded with her. She was so sweet and she was really talkative. And so we are super talkative also. So she sat in there and we just really enjoyed having her and stuff. So I was like, man, she's going to leave too. Like, it felt like we were just going through nurses and doctors left and right. My doctor also had decided this was a little bit earlier, she had decided to go on home, which I totally understand. She had been waiting all day and we all thought my labor was going to happen like really quickly. So when it wasn't happening quickly, like, I don't blame her at all for going home. She's got a family and things to do also. But, I just really, of course, like everybody, hope that their doctor is going to be the one that delivers and stuff. So she lived like not that far away and really was anticipating that, when progress started happening, she would have enough notice to get back over and stuff. So we were kind of expecting that would probably work out. But it didn't. So this nurse, her name was Jerusha, and it was, anyway, she just kept checking me and kept waiting. Nothing was really progressing, right? So finally, it's like maybe 11:30, and I told my husband, he hadn't eaten all day. I hadn't eaten all day. I'm like, you just need to go get something to eat. Like, there's no reason for both of us to be miserable and starving. Like, just go get something to eat. And nothing's clearly happening. Like, they've checked me constantly. No, nothing's really changed much at all in the past few hours. So go get something. So he goes downstairs, and he said later that he was like trying to debate between, he didn't want to eat in front of me. So he was debating on eating down in the cafeteria, but then he opted, he's like, no, I better bring the food up there. I'll just like eat in the bathroom or in the hallway or something. Well, at that same time, our nurse came in and she's like, she was watching the baby's heart rate, and it had descended again as a contraction had happened. And that was, again, one of those scary things and stuff. But then the heart rate, went back up after the contraction had passed. And she looked at me and she's like, do you care? Because she was getting ready to go home. She's like, do you care if I just check you one more time? Because I feel like your body's doing something maybe. And I was like, sure, go ahead. So she checked me and she's like, you're a 10. I'm like, what? So I went literally from like a 5 to a 10 in like 30 minutes time frame while my husband was downstairs grabbing food, which is funny because this happened in our first delivery also. He went to grab breakfast and it was like, oh my word, where are you? Like, things are happening. So the nurse was like, call him because you're having this baby, So I called him and thankfully he was like right outside the door anyway. So he got in there and then of course all the staff rush in. She ran out and told them, nurses, and the doctor came in fairly quickly. But this was another thing. So they sat me up and I was not feeling good. Like, I've never felt like that in my life, but I felt like I'm going to puke and I'm going to pass out. I had like stars on either side of me and felt like I had tunnel vision. Like, it was a super scary time. So I had told the nurse, I was like, I think I'm going to get sick, and she gave me this bucket. And then I was telling her, I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. It was so scary because I was like, I know that I'm going to have to like push this baby out, but yet I'm not sure I can stay, like, I think I'm going to be unconscious. And, anyway, she was so great. She like started fanning me, and then she like had already told us about something that I think it was called Neo. They can put in your IV, and if your blood pressure is low, which is what she thought was happening, that it would kind of like perk everything back up. And so she got the order for that and like got that in me, and it really changed like instantly. I was like, okay, yes, I can do this. And anyway, so the doctor was in there by that point. And it was like a doctor we hadn't met or anything, but he's like, okay, I think we're ready to, start pushing. And it was about 5 pushes, I think, before he was born at 1:04 a.m. So we did not get the 12:22:22 like we had hoped, but he made his debut and was safe. It was scary for a minute because they told me to stop pushing mid-contraction when he was coming out because the cord was wrapped around his neck, and the doctor said it was really tight, and I could feel like when he actually removed it was like I could feel it jerk on me on the inside. Anyway, it was such a relief. He was okay. He came out very purple, but he was, crying and doing all the things that you want to see and hear. And so my husband and I, of course, were both like a bawling mess, but we were just so thankful that he was out and everything was going okay. It was a little bit also scary when they the placenta came out, like almost all of it came out, but part of it was still attached on the inside, and so they had to like sweep, I guess is what the doctor said. And I kind of lost extra blood during that time, but overall they said I really hadn't lost like a substantial amount of blood, so that was good. But just any of that stuff, whenever it starts looking like a lot is coming out, is kind of concerning. But anyway, again, he was healthy and things went fine. I did have like I think they called it a superficial tear. It was minor. They didn't have to do any stitches or anything. I think he said that he used, I think it was called silver nitrate or something. He said kind of like cauterizing it. I will say here we are a week later and I can still feel that some, which I was hoping. I didn't tear it all with our son, and so I was hoping that would be the case with this one, but I'm glad that it didn't require stitches, so it could certainly be worse. I'm going to mention too, like my lips have been so dry. I don't know, like you can see where some of the skin has came off. It's really red there, but I don't know if that's from anything delivery related or if it's just winter or what's going on, but I do not typically have trouble with my lips being dry like this, and they are very dry. So anyway, yes, he was born 1:04 a.m. and he weighed 7 pounds, 7 ounces, and he is such a sweet little baby. We just love him so much. Can't imagine things without him. It's been so great to have him here with our other two kids, and we have just, I know I've mentioned that before, but like we really waited kind of a long time to have this baby and stuff, so everybody has just really enjoyed every moment being with him and snuggling him, and we're just soaking him in. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of share with you guys how that story went, because it was kind of so not expected, and then it got very exciting there at the end. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this little story, and sometime I'll probably get on here and share our other two deliveries, because they were so different from each other. And I guess I just kind of expected that this one would be similar, and then definitely was not. So anyway, I'm going to finish my makeup now, because I have talked more than I've actually put makeup on. But thanks so much for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments, or maybe if you're going to have a baby yourself soon, or if you've had a delivery that was similar, anything like that, like let me know in the comments. I always like to see that kind of stuff. I know that having a cord around the neck is not like a super uncommon thing. I think I Googled it and it said like 20 to 30% of births are that way. I can't remember the term they used for it, but it has a term. Anyway, I didn't realize that. I thought it was fairly rare, and I know that added, that was kind of scary. So if you've had that happen, let me know. And anyway, thanks again so much for watching. Have a great day, guys.